Hello, everybody. It's Sunday night. The name of the show is Intuitive Inc., and I am Servet Hassan. I have a really fascinating show for you tonight, very informative. I just read their book. There's two people on the line today. We have Charlie and Linda Bloom with me. Linda and Charlie Bloom are both professional relationship counselors and seminar leaders who do lectures and classes and have taught all over the world. They've written 3 other books, including one that I thought might be really fascinating, Happily Ever After, and 39 other myths about love, which sounds fascinating to me. But anyway, that's not the one we're talking about today. The one we are talking about today is called That Which Doesn't Kill Us. How one couple got stronger at the broken places. And they went to the brink and back, and they talk about it really openly in a very brave way. So I'm very happy and honored to have on the show Linda and Charlie Bloom. Welcome.
I'm delighted to be here with you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. I loved the book. I did read it. I thought it's fascinating. You've been married a very long time. You've been doing these seminars and workshops and working with individuals and groups since 1975. So that's a long time. You know your stuff, I'm sure. And you've been married almost longer than that, I'm sure, right? You got married in 72.
Right. Together 50 years.
Wow, the big 50. What is that? Is that silver, or does he have to buy you a diamond?
No, I think that's gold. It's golden.
Oh, come on. Let's get the diamond. Can we just...
Gifts is not our love languages. I'm into touch and words of information. We both scored really low on gifts on that one.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, I think it's lovely that the gift is that you've been married since 1972. It's fascinating. And I love the story you told in this book. You were very open. That how you fell in love with him, Linda, was he was carrying a picture of his sister in his wallet, and you thought, oh, he can't be that bad. And then you went out with him.
I said, father material. And it was a beautiful baby picture with his little sister, was about 2.5, 3 years old with Carol.
You're saying that you decided about 20 minutes after we met?
Well, during the first 24 hours, yeah.
Right.
I said, this is
a
a keeper. I recognized it pretty soon.
Good for you.
I'm kind of slow on the
Of course, you were both like 12 or 14 when.
Not that old. Come on.
No, I think it's lovely. It's a miracle. I think that people can stay together. But you did go to the brink and back. You did have to kind of reconstruct a relationship, and I think it's interesting the way you did this book. You each have a chapter, like it's told from both of your perspectives on the course of the breakdown and then the rebuilding of the marriage. What made you decide to write it that way?
Well, it was the very first book that we ever wrote. We've written 4, but this was the first one, and we put it aside because a person that we trusted told us, who's going to want to read your memoir? Nobody knows who you are. You better do some other books first. So we did that. We wrote 3 self-help books. And at the time that I wrote this, I was very insecure about my writing, and I wouldn't let Charlie touch a word. So I wrote my chapters and he wrote his, and I didn't even want him editing my chapters back then. And I'm much more secure now, so we can blend our ideas and blend our writing. And the other 3 books are done that way. But this one, I really wanted my point of view to be my point of view and to be very separate and individuated from his. And as you can tell, he talks a lot about his work life in his chapters, and I'm talking about the home life and the lack of harmony in our family because work got such a big bite. And I think that when you see things through my eyes and my point of view, you can see how out of balance the work-family balance got, because he was working regularly an 80-hour week. And he kept waking up in hotel rooms, and he didn't know what city he was in.
Right.
And he worked such long hours and had just a very short meal break, and he'd call me on the meal break, and we'd only have a few minutes. So I operated basically as a single parent for a lot of that time.
Oh, exactly. I think in the book you even said it that way. You said he was building a career and you were building resentment.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's interesting to me because it really is. This started now. It started because a friend of yours, Charlie, Richard, called you about a human potential training program that he wanted you to get involved with because he did, and it was so successful for him. And then that was sort of the beginning of the decline. That's when you started working those 80-hour weeks. And there was a question here, and I just forgot what it was. But I think, anyway, I think that I think the question here was how long into the marriage was that? I don't need to know how old you were then. I was just, how many years had you both been married at that point?
Yeah, that was 1981, and we were married in 72. So we'd been married for 9 years. 9,
okay. So and then that's what started it, because up until then it sounds like you were kind of trooping along together as a team, and then suddenly you got involved in this human potential program, which is kind of ironic because it's supposed to be helping you find yourself, which sounded really good to you, but it turned out to be sort of more of a game than anything, quote unquote. And then you got involved in that. So, where did you come to the point where you knew that it was just not going to work? Both of you, either one of you.
I knew way before he did.
Yeah, it was the work.
Early on.
In the very first year, I
okay.
could tell it was taking too much of a toll.
Right.
That we hardly had any time together as a family. We hardly had any time together as a couple. We had very little social life.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie left a lot of the things that were really important to him, like playing his guitar and his workouts.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see that this was not workable on the long term. And I told him clearly, this is not working for me. I don't think it's working for us. And I'd really like you to leave this job.
Right.
But he loved the job.
Yeah, I think you called him a visiting dignitary many times.
Right. He didn't know where anything was in the house. He used to ask me where things were. I said, go rummage around. And he had this sort of worship going on, particularly after the first year when he became a lead and a solo trainer, where the staff would wait on him hand and foot, and the students thought he walked on water, and they really held him as some kind of a holy guru. And he would come home with this big fat ego, and he'd say, what's for lunch? And I'd say, take out the garbage.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And although, Charlie, you did start to recognize this, too. You started to recognize at some point this was an addiction, just like any other, right?
That is the correct, yes, that's the correct word to use to characterize my relationship to my job. It was I was a workaholic. Had never been one before. Prior to taking this job, I had never even considered the most remote possibility that I could ever become that kind of a person, because that's just not who I am. That's not my personality is not to be driven and obsessive and hyper ambitious. I mean, I've got certainly desires for, success and good things in my life, but I'm certainly not possessed by that in a totally absorbing way. But when I started working for this company, I really had a personality change. It just awakened something that was within me that I didn't even know was there to that degree. And the word that I use to describe that state is I was possessed. I don't mean it in a religious way. I mean, I was just so completely taken over by a compelling, powerful, it wasn't a desire, it was actually a need to fulfill some part of myself through this work. And what I would say when Linda would, she would never demand that I leave the job, but she would tell me, how painful it was and how difficult it was for her.
Right.
And so it was
Go ahead.
very challenging times.
Well, where was, because she does that in the book. It was a kind of interesting. You were wondering why she's so upset all the time because she was getting defensive and, you're getting upset and yelling and then, all these things that couples do that are destructive, name calling, all those things. When did you really, because she says in her part too that it was, you were a nice bearded guitar picking fun guy and then you turn into this obsessive, ambitious guy in a suit. So there's a huge difference there. It's not like you went from a little change to, you went through a huge transition.
So you're asking me when that transition happened and how that happened? Yeah. That's a great question. I've thought about it a lot. And it's funny because the process was both gradual in terms of incrementally my becoming increasingly more aware, not just because Linda was telling me, but because I was experiencing it in my own life, in my own body, in my own moods. I could tell that in some ways I was not thriving. That gradually, that was the gradual part of the process. But then there was a sudden, very strong, compelling, powerful event that happened in a moment. So it was both visual and it was also instantaneous.
That's interesting. There's one moment when you just knew. It's
like all of that time that I was being affected by my situation, my body was keeping track of all that. And and at some point, and it wasn't, it became really clear. I could see my situation at home in a way that I wasn't able to before. There was just a moment at which everything became illuminated for me. And I read, of course, as you know, in pretty great detail about what that experience was for me in the book. But it was really, I would say it was a life-changing moment, and it literally did change my life. And
then like any addiction, you get caught up in it. I think it's the same with alcohol, whether it's alcohol or sex or shopping or drugs or you get lost in the whole thing. It almost
there's something especially insidious about work addiction because it's more invisible than the alcohol and drug use or gambling or food, because it's honored in our culture to be hardworking. And I don't know if you're familiar with the word karoshi. It's a Japanese word where people drop dead of overwork.
No.
And it's being adopted in our culture because it's starting to happen here in the United States as well. That some people push themselves so hard and don't get enough sleep and don't eat and push and push and push. And they have heart attacks and strokes and they just die. And the most lethal heart attacks happen at 9 a.m. on Monday morning.
Right.
It's when people have relaxed a little bit on the weekend and they go back into a stressful job. And it finishes them off. And heart disease runs in Charlie's family, and his dad had serious heart attacks before he was 40. And Charlie was his father's age at that time when he became a hard-driving, aggressive corporate man. And I was literally afraid that the way he was working and how unbalanced his life was might kill him.
Yeah.
Then I would be a single parent, and I'd be a grieving widow for, literally. I felt like a grieving widow because he was forever leaving me to go fly off.
Right. But you stuck it out, though. Yeah, you did. You stuck it out. There were many times when you say, well, you thought about divorce, you thought about leaving. I remember there was one part where you said you locked yourself in the bedroom door and put a note on the door that said, I hate you, I want a divorce, or something like, or go to a hotel or something like that. But that a lot of women get there and don't know what to do. But you kept at it. I think, isn't that kind of when you started couples therapy? Or you did at some point go to couples.
We didn't go to couples therapy. We went to some good couples workshops.
Oh, okay.
I was afraid to go to couples therapy because I knew that there were therapists out there and marriage counselors out there who advise you to break a marriage up. And we were hanging by threads, and I just had too much fear that if I consulted a professional person and they told me that this relationship was hopeless because we were so gridlocked for so long, that would be the last straw. So I did find two couples who I really trusted, and to Charlie's credit, he was willing to go with me, and we got enormous help from both of those couples.
Right. And I think one of the pieces of the puzzle for you, Linda, for the help you got there was that they said, you need to find yourself as well. And then that's when you got into meditation and, working on your own spiritual self too.
That's exactly right. We laugh about that one now because when we drove up to Brighton Bush, Oregon, from where we were living in wine country, it took us 14 hours to get to Brighton Bush. Mm-hmm. After I had my enormous breakthrough and I let down a tonnage of resentment that I was carrying and got my attention off of Charlie onto myself, we took the identical route coming home, but it only took us 12 hours to get home.
Wow.
We think it's because we were traveling light coming home.
You were lighter, yes. You let some baggage go, out the window. You threw it out the window, literally. That's good. That's good. No, that's good. I mean, people don't know. So would you recommend that to other couples that are listening if people are having problems to maybe not look for therapy, but to look for a good couples work group?
I'm from the and School of Thought. Mm-hmm. Find the best couples counselor you can find. Mm-hmm. Go to the best relationship workshops you can find, and get the best books on relationship. And use all the resources, because sometimes people are very reluctant to reach out to ask for help. The research shows that the average couple, before they make the first couples counseling appointment, have been in trouble for several years. And that statistic breaks my heart. So I definitely tell couples, get help sooner and use all kinds of help. Talk to the couples that you know that are doing well and ask them the secrets of success. And go to couples counseling and go to the workshops and read the books. Right.
Okay. Speaking of which, you do that. You are doing couples workshops too, right? Both of you together.
We do them. We've been doing them for quite a long time.
Yes.
And our workshops they're not just for couples. Most of them are for anybody, and couples come together, singles can come, halves of pairs can come. But that's one of the main things that we've been doing for a while. Our new book has been that's been kind of a major part of.
Yeah, this is very helpful too. This book, How One Couple Became Stronger at the Broken Places, which is you. Well, you're the couple, but it's very helpful because it does give people some food for thought, And now, if people want to find your workshops and your book, I mean, I'm sure they can find your book anywhere you buy books now. But how can they find out about you and the work you're doing?
If they go to Bloomwork, BLOOMWORK.com, they will see all 4 of our books. They'll see our smiling face. They'll see our address and phone number. They can call us up on the phone. We do a lot of phone counseling and Skype because most of the clients that we see are from our workshops and can be anybody anywhere in the country, or else they come from our books. And if they want to see our workshop schedule, it's on our website. And I want to make sure that your listening audience knows about the brand new Personal Growth Center in the country. It's right in our neighborhood. We live in Santa Cruz, and the next town over is Scotts Valley, and there's a big, beautiful Personal Growth Center called 1440 Multiversity. And we will be teaching next weekend there. If anybody wants to jump in last minute, they are welcome.
That's awesome. What is there some significance to 1440 the numbers? Multiversity?
I believe that is the number of minutes in a 24-hour day.
Oh, okay. I knew there was something to that. That's awesome. That's interesting. Okay, so bloomwork.com, BLOOMWORK.com is where you can find out anything you want to know about Charlie and Linda Bloom. I've got to ask about how you got to the point where, you know, Charlie, you stopped one day and said you had to quit. And you did quit the corporate world, that the personal human potential movement that you were so wrapped up in and so involved with. What gave you the balls to do that?
Let me just give you kind of an abbreviated version of that. There's a chapter in the book that is about that very thing. So I want to give you kind of the condensed version of that.
Okay. Yes, because you quit a few times before that, so and never really left. So go ahead.
So Linda, let's say, encouraged me to join her in going to a couples workshop. This was after I had been working for the company for about 5 years, and I agreed to go because I knew that we needed help, and I wanted things to change too, although I had some very strong reservations about going and exposing our problems in a public way, because my work had kind of required me to present this particular image everywhere at all times, not just in the training room. So I was kind of stuck in that, and so I did want things to change for the better, but I wasn't very optimistic about it happening, and I had real mixed feelings about going to this workshop. But I went, and so in the workshop, at one point on the second day, the workshop, there was a couple leading the workshop, and one of them invited any couple that feels like they really could use some help into the center of the circle that we had formed. And so, much to my surprise, I'm being a little sarcastic here, Linda puts her hand up, and next thing I know, we're in the middle of the room. And
Yay.
Well, the abbreviated version is that through the input and support of the leaders and the people in the group, I had this incredible opening to feelings that I had that I hadn't even realized were there. Very, very deep feelings. A lot of grief and sadness, particularly about having missed so much over the last several years of opportunities to have been more with my family and my kids and Linda. And just, it really hit me. It was almost as though 5 years of denied pain all exploded in me in a moment. Is that graphic enough?
Yes, it is, and I get it. I mean, you really didn't spend much time. You have 3 children, for people that out there that don't know, it's in the book, Jesse, Evan, and Sarah, and they were growing up, and you were not around. So I'm sure it hit you hard. And Linda, too, you know, she was pretty much doing all the, being a single parent, and I can imagine that hitting you in an explosive way, you know?
I was afraid to let myself believe that it was really over. Charlie said it's over, and he had resigned from the corporation before, and they were able to ensnare him to get him back in. So it took me a little while to really trust into it that he wasn't going to go back. And as soon as I got that, I said, we're going to do our own thing. We're not going to work for anybody else. We're going to start our own business. We can put on workshops. We had already written a workshop for the company that Charlie worked for, and that workshop was splendid. I said, we're going to put our own workshop on the road. Little did I know how much fierce competition we were going to be having.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
In the San Francisco Bay Area, it's a good thing I didn't know. I would have been horrified. I don't think I would have had the guts to do it. But I was naive, and I just was determined that we were going to do our own thing. And so we put our little fledgling business together, and it grew and grew and grew. And Charlie made up his mind that he was not going to do any more work for any corporations, that he was going to just build our dream and not build anybody else's dream. And ultimately, I ended up being grateful for the training that he had gotten there, because it really positioned us well to do a deep experience with the people that we were working with. And because of all these cities they had worked with, we had following all over the country. So then I could start flying with him, and we had civilized hours, not working until really late at night. And we would do shorter workshops, just a day or 2 days. And we started having a ball. And immediately when he resigned from the corporation, our family the dry, barren field started to bloom. Do you know, we really came back into vivid color and life again.
Right. Well, it's almost like, because I truly believe nothing happens by accident, really. I think everything sort of can lead us somewhere, and that sometimes as Buddha said, sometimes not getting what you want is the best thing that could ever happen to you. So sometimes, not being with the big company and knowing you've got to make it work makes it work, It's like you did do relationship workshops for that company too, and then they stopped them for some reason, and then I think that kind of was one of the other reasons, maybe subconsciously, that you thought, okay, then we'll just do our own, and you did, right?
Yeah, we did, and it was so obvious, and it still is, that there's a real need for this kind of experience. There's an awful lot of people who really can benefit from this, and some of them know it, but for whatever reasons, it just seems like if people really understood the potential value, I mean, there's no guarantee, of course, but the potential value in really getting some good help, and knowing that just about anybody who's ever created a good or really good relationship has at some point or points in their history together have gotten some help, because we can't do this alone.
Exactly.
There's no way.
Right. No, there's no way. And really, honestly, I think even when you were addicted to be working for the company, somewhere down below all of that, you really did want to help people. So this was a way to continuing helping people without being crazy, without going overboard, and continuing to do good work, but not killing yourself in the process. You right?
Well, that is the biggest challenge in creating really successful, fulfilling relationships, partnerships of any kind. Marriages, that's key right there, is to be able to integrate and fully honor and fulfill the needs of each one of those areas of your life. Your personal well-being, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and then relationships, and your work. What do you do, to sustain yourself on the earth? I mean, there's so many things that have got to be integrated. The wonder isn't that so many people have problems. To me, I look at what we're all up against in terms of the enormity of the challenges of doing all this, handling all these commitments. The wonder to me is that anybody can make it. And you use the word, I think, miracle.
Right.
It does seem like a miracle to me.
It is.
If we can create even one really deeply authentic connection, open-heartedly with another person. I mean, to me, that's the miracle.
Yeah, I think that's seeing God in a way. Somebody else said that, not me. I just can't remember who at the moment. But
there's
it's
a line, very last line in the last song in the musical Les Mis is the last line is, to love another person is to see the face of God.
There you go. That's it. That's it. Thank you.
That's where that line comes from. Yeah.
Thank you, Charlie. Well, okay, now we're going to open the line. We're halfway through the show here. If there's any brave people out there that want to have an issue with a relationship, a marriage or not, doesn't matter, then please call in now, 949-313-8880, because I don't think there's two more precious people here that can help you better. So call in. They've got answers. They know their stuff. They've been doing this for since 1975, and are well trained in this, other than just, the school training that they got 100 years ago. They've been doing this with a lot of people. I'm sure they've heard it all at this point. So don't be afraid. Be brave. Call in 949-313-8880. We're on the line with Charlie and Linda Bloom. The book is That Which Doesn't Kill Us, and how one couple became stronger at the broken places. But they reinvented their marriage, basically, at that point, and it just got better and better. And this year, they're celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. So there you go. Any questions? Call in now, because we're going to run out of time really fast. Also, if you want more information on them, you can look them up on the internet at bloomwork.com, BLOOMWORK.com. I think it's fabulous to have you on the line. So let's just keep talking, see if anybody calls in, and if not, we'll just I'd like to ask a couple of questions, though, because really honestly, Charlie, you touched on this a little bit. It's important to be able to connect like that. But what do you think the core key to a relationship is? Is it communication? Is it being able to really express yourself?
Well, one of the questions that we get a lot from people is, what kind of a quality should I look for in a partner? So that's pretty much what you're asking here, and it's hard for me to identify one particular quality or one particular piece of.
Well, I'm sure it's more than one thing. I guess the real question then is, because you both wrote this book from your own perspectives. So writing this book together, you wrote your chapter, Linda's wrote her chapters on what was happening and how it went down the dark side, and then how you reinvented it and brought it back. Did that make your marriage stronger, being able to read it from the other person's perspective?
Absolutely.
Which is communication, really key, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that communication is key. Mm-hmm. But I would say that communication is the big umbrella, and that underneath that are subcategories of deep respect, deep listening, having good negotiation skills, the respecting the differences and learning from the differences, and good conflict management skills. These are all subcategories underneath good communication.
Right.
Being willing to be vulnerable and express your deeper feelings, like your fears and your hurt and your pain and your longing, and when you feel lonely, when you may feel unloved, and to talk about those tender feelings in not a blaming way, not an accusing way, not a demanding or a commanding way, in an inviting way that invites connection. So communication is the broad umbrella, but there are many facets underneath it that are all like a mosaic, that each piece has to work. You have to be good at repair when there are breakdowns, because there are inevitably going to be breakdowns. And so how do you handle that? How do you learn what it is that will satisfy your partner? If you're forgetful and you break an agreement and the trust goes down, how do you make amends? How do you put the corrections in? These are all subcategories under the large category of communication. Right.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot more to it than that, but I think I found the way you wrote the book really interesting, which was from both of your perspectives, and that's why I brought up the key of communication, because it's written from you. Clearly, when you write it, you can tell that you're not writing it together, but you're blending it together. But it's you talking when you talk, Linda, and it's Charlie talking when he's doing his part, the chapters. Because when he started talking about how he was, the ego, and how much he liked being, he would finish the seminars and then people would clamor to talk to him afterwards, and how much he needed that, not just wanted that, but needed it. So, that's coming from a very deep place. So it's a very open, honest book, which is key to any relationship, the honesty and the communications. That's why I brought that up. It's really well done. I think it's great that you did it that way and not did it from both of you writing it together. Kind of.
The reason that we made that decision to not only write separately, and we, like I think Linda might have mentioned, that we didn't even look at each other's work while we were writing, not wanting to be influenced by the style, because as you can tell by reading the chapters, we have very different writing styles too.
Right. Yes.
But see, that's one of the things that's one of the messages that we're trying to convey in doing the book, presenting it the way we are, is that people can be very, very different in very significant ways. They can have different writing styles. They can have different personalities. They can have different desires. I mean, there's so many places where we can be different. But if we can connect at a level in which we are standing on common ground, really connect at a level where the differences don't make any difference, because we're relating from a perspective that is much more vivid and much more real and with much more depth than the relatively superficial level of the obvious differences.
Exactly. Right. I agree. I think that's true. So I'm glad you wrote it that way. I really am. You guys have been doing this a long time though too, so was it hard to you teach it and then you're also going through it at the same time. So it's like it gives you another level of being able to express to people. It's hard for someone to teach what they've not been through themselves, and you've certainly been there and back. So that's a good thing too. People can gain from that knowledge for sure. I
consider us both to be wounded healers.
Oh, I like that.
So we teach out of those wounds. And, before we even thought seriously about putting the book out in front of the public, which seemed so risky when we first wrote it, still risky, but not as risky as when we first did it, we were telling our before and after stories when we were teaching. And people seemed to really sit up and take notice when we would talk about some of the dark, shadowy places that we had been, because it was so obvious to our students in our classes and our clients that we're, really delighting in our relationship now. Mm-hmm. And I think it would inspire them that they were thinking, oh, those people were so screwed up. We can do at least that well.
Yes.
They learned the mechanisms break through.
Yeah, and it sort of proves it works,
Yes, we learned in the trenches. And one of the things that we learned that I hope comes clear through the book, that we both had a blind spot, that we both thought that when we were angry and upset that we had to get it off our chest or we were going to grow a tumor or ulcer or some awful thing. And we both bought into that myth about we had to express ourselves. And so it made a very difficult situation where we were lonely and disconnected and parting, apart so much of the time. And I had to make decisions about the kids without much input from Charlie. Mm-hmm. So he had stress of his own, working the hours he was working in the high-demand, challenging job. Mm-hmm. But we made this difficult situation harder because of the incessant fighting that we did during that time. And when we finally learned that there was a way to express ourselves without the blame and judgment in it, things got a lot better.
Right.
When I practiced non-attachment to how things had to look, and I loosened up my white knuckle grip about what my marriage and family life had to be, things got a lot better. When I made a determined effort to look at him through the eyes of appreciation and gratitude and change my glasses from the dark ones that were thinking of all the ways he was failing me and put on the rose-colored glasses, I could see that he was still a high-integrity person, he was dedicated to service, that he was a change agent, that he was a good dad and husband when he was around. He just wasn't around nearly enough. And looking through the eyes of appreciation and gratitude had an enormous impact on my well-being. So all these pieces we had to learn in the trenches. It was on-the-job training. But when we speak about them, I think we speak about them with so much conviction that conveys to our students in a strong way. It touches them. And the change that they make as a result of these realizations in the class are apt to stick like they did for us when we got good help.
Yes, absolutely. Now, instead of, because I agree, and this is true with all relationships, getting it off your chest in an angry fit of, vomiting your words out and I don't think it's productive in any sense. And I know it is a myth, like, oh, you're going to get sick if you don't get this out. But there's a way to do it, and that's what I think you're trying to say. There's a way to approach this. Guilt tripping people, manipulating them, calling them names, yelling, screaming, whatever. That doesn't work. It's never going to work with anything, even with our children and or anyone that we love, but even in relationships at work, whatever. And the book really does point that out well. And it has goods how you fixed that. So I liked that too. So are you still meditating? Go ahead.
You mentioned that, and I'm glad that you appreciated that.
I do.
Because that's very, very important.
I do.
So many of us are either inclined to do one of two things. Either we tend to blurt out and indulge our anger in what can be very destructive ways to our partner, or else we suck it up. We hold it in, we shut down, and we just internalize it. And neither one of those responses works. They're both damaging to both people and to the relationship. So the challenge is to somehow find a way, and it's not that there's one way, but there is something that has to be done, which is to be able to honor the need to deal with these strong feelings of anger, hurt, pain, desire, frustration. I mean, these very, very intense feelings, particularly anger. We have to find some way to honor that, because we can't just deny it, push it away. It isn't going to go away. It's going to go in.
Right.
But the alternative seems to be, the only one seems to be to project it out. And that doesn't work either if we're doing it in ways that are really designed to hurt or punish the other person. So it's the intention behind the expression of anger that really makes a difference. You want to say something about
right,
that?
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead.
My mind was on fire, and the anger that I was living in was just burning me up alive. And it was spilling over into our precious little time together. And when I realized that I had the ability and enough self-discipline and personal power to make a conscious choice to put the anger on a shelf, and I used to call it with Charlie, let's be regular people. Do you know, with ordinary challenges and problems, not this massive one.
Right.
And on the precious day that he was home in between the trainings, we put it aside, and we were regular people. And we would get the kids off to school, and we would get back in bed, and we would be with each other. And touch is my favorite love language. And we would look in each other's eyes, and we would catch up on some of the things that we hadn't had a chance to catch up with the week that was gone by. And we would fill our soul tanks up, and for me, it was just enough to make it one more week. And I did that, for years with just one more week. But that making every minute count for the little bit of time that we had and not let it be intruded upon by the irreconcilable difference in all the anger and resentment that I had about it was really key to my being able to hang in until the breakthrough happened when he finally resigned.
Right. Yeah, and I think in the book you even explained it as one of you is a stuffer and one of you is an expressor, and that wasn't working because, with your emotions, so you have to find a way to make that work, which you did. We're running out of time. We're almost done. If there's one brave soul out there, call in 949-313-8880 if you have an issue and you have a quick question. It's got to be quick now because we're winding down already. I could talk to you guys for hours. Seriously. I mean, it's fascinating. It's
Love
like
that.
I do. I mean, you've been through a lot and you've trained in this as well. But then you've done it from the trenches, as you said. So it's kind of like and you've made it work, and you've been married almost 50 years, and it's all worked out great. I mean, there's a happy ending to this book. Spoiler alert. I'm going to have to tell you that right now. The spoiler alert is that they're still together, and it worked out great, and I love that too. We could use more happy endings, I think you've done an excellent job, and it takes a lot to be that honest, It does.
Well, we were proud of having come through not only with an intact family and an intact marriage, because we were really hanging on by our fingernails there for a while, but we were proud that we had become stronger as a result of the ordeal. We were challenged so much that we really used it, and we learned a lot for ourselves, and then now we can contribute out of that which we learned. And one of the reasons that I wanted so much to write this book is because we got really good help, and I feel a strong impulse, to pay it forward and to honor the people who helped us to move through the darkness into the light, to help other people to do that as well.
Right. That's awesome. And really, truly too, everything contribute. Even working with this company that Charlie worked with for so long, it's hard to put on a seminar. It's hard to put on a workshop and a seminar and lead and there's things there's more to it than most people know, it's not easy and now you're running your own business and all of this came from everything you've learned along the way and came together to have a successful marriage, which you do. Now, the question I have is, do you have a spiritual practice that you do together or separately that keeps you aligned in any way?
The brief answer to that is no. There isn't any kind of regularly scheduled practice or service that we do together. Mm-hmm. I do believe, though, that we each have a very deep appreciation for the value of the development of the spiritual side of ourselves.
Right.
And we're both very committed to that, and that's directly related to our work because one of our basic values is that we're here to leave this planet with more than what we came here with.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So yeah, we do have certain
do you
values.
Right, exactly. Do you still meditate, Linda? I know you.
So I will say that although I don't have a time of day and a place where I sit at an altar with a cushion and do a formal meditation practice, mm-hmm. I feel that throughout my day I am practicing mindfulness. And I feel that my major form of practice is living life mindfully, cultivating the warm heart of compassion, and living a life of service. And I feel that Charlie and I are joined in that mission. So I feel like that is our spiritual practice that we share.
There you go. And that's a perfect way to end the show. We didn't have a brave person call in, and then I will get 9,200 emails tomorrow saying, we wanted to call, but it's private, and we didn't think of the question until later. So I'm going to tell them that all they need to do then is to go to bloomwork.com, BLOOMWORK, and then they can contact you from there, or they can get a session or whatever else they need and buy the book and all your other books too, because you've written 3 others. So,
and go on 6 sites. So there's all kinds of free stuff on our website. So they can link up to Psychology Today and Psych Central and the other places where we blog.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. You are delightful, both of you. Linda and Charlie Bloom. I love you both, and congratulations to 50 years, and you've done it, and you've made it through, and you've been to the dark side and back, I'm sure more than once, and here you still are to talk about it. And please, keep doing the work you're doing. It's important. It really is. Thank you.
Same to you, and yes.
Had a great time.
Thank you. You take care, you guys. Okay? Thanks a lot. Great show. I love them. They're wonderful. They are Linda and Charlie Bloom. Again, that which doesn't kill us, which it almost did kill them. When I read the book, yes, very evident. But they made it through. So if you're a couple with any kind of issues, there's help. And it's work, Relationships are work, and relationships are mirrors of ourselves, And there's something to be learned along the way. And if you do come out the other side, you come out stronger, bigger, better, onward and upward. And next week I have a really great show. I have Elaine Clayton on the show. She's written 2 books, a little bit of fairies, a little bit of angels. So we're doing fairies and angels next week. Please join me. And again, I am Servet Hassan, and you can find out anything you need to know about me, ServetHassan.com. or you can email me at servette@servettehassan.com. I love hearing from all of you. I really do. There's blogs, there's podcasts, there's all these wonderful things coming up. I'm working on some seminars at the moment, and then and a new book. So everything will be there as shortly, and I'll announce it as I go. And just remember to be you to the full, because I always say that's what's truly beautiful, being your authentic self, whether you're being your authentic self alone or with somebody in a partnership. It doesn't matter. That's what makes it work, is you being you to the full. And that's what they wrote about, because they were both being themselves, and then they found a way to express it to each other. And now they've co-joined that. But finding who you are and then being your true self and authentic to you, to thine own self be true, as it's been said a million times. Well, actually once by someone really famous, so I can't think of right now, but to thine own self, is it Shakespeare? To thine own self be true. It is really important. It's really real. There's more to that than you'll ever know. It's about finding that place in you and then running with it, because when you do, everything happens and it works. It works. You don't need laws of attraction. You don't need anything. You just need to be you. And everything else falls into place. So remember that, okay? I love you all. Thank you for listening, and please join me next week on Intuitive Inc. Take care. Good night.